This is an in-depth explanation of the 2.4 section of the entrepreneurial pathways for week 2 for Entrepreneurship 260. Within this, there is information that really talks about how traditionally we looked at entrepreneurship and its evolution of just being someone who would start a business to being someone who was maybe a tech startup, things like that. Well, we have a whole bunch of definitions now for what an entrepreneur is and how they should be identifying themselves. And remember that you can be more than one of these at once. So, going through this particular section of the text, we are looking at several different types. And you can choose more than one to identify yourself. Typically, we will do that in general. I would call myself a traditional entrepreneur, as well as a female entrepreneur, as well as potentially a minority entrepreneur, in that I am a minority within my industry, being female. But only one could speak to you, many could speak to you. So going through these, a college entrepreneur is typically someone who is going to be doing some sort of entrepreneurial activity in college. I would have called myself a college entrepreneur at one point because I did some serious side hustling in college. But a lot of times we're going to look at this as something that maybe you started your business based off of a class like this, where you were asked to create a business plan and then decided to actually follow through with it. Maybe you've already started a business, maybe it's an e-commerce business or a cleaning business or something like that. And now we're putting a label to it and we're putting a business plan to it. But typically it's someone who started or is in college and has an entrepreneurial venture of some sort. A corporate intrapreneur. This is someone who's going to be looking for innovation or growth opportunities within a corporation. So anybody who potentially has opened a new store for a corporation, who has opened a new region, who has opened a new division. At one point, I was part of this category as well. I got to work in a new division that had been started, and because of who I was working with and how my connections were within the company, I was actually able to teach on a national stage, and I did some of the first teachings in the country to our new customers in how we were to work with those products, which was kind of a cool thing. A franchise entrepreneur, this is someone who's going to get a franchise license. You're going to get a Starbucks license, a Crumble Cookies, a McDonald's, a Wendy's, something like that that is franchisable. And so you're going to work within the franchise system, but you're going to own your own location or locations. An immigrant entrepreneur, typically this is a person who has immigrated into a new country, who is then starting a business within that new country. I have seen people feel very connected to the immigrant entrepreneur if maybe their parents or their grandparents immigrated, but they were born in this country, but they still have a lot of the culture based around their family's immigration status, and working within their culture within the new country is where you could see, I could see that falling into. An internet entrepreneur. This is someone who has access to the technology and the platforms and things like, say, Etsy or Shopify or even TikTok and Instagram, or excuse me, YouTube Shorts, stuff where you can get money for doing things on the internet. So you're going to see a lot of maybe e-commerce or videos or Twitch streamers, things like that, where they're getting paid to do something in an online capacity. I could fall into this because a lot of what I do is online, because I'm working with people over Zoom. I'm creating content for people, and I'm getting paid through the content as well as when I work with individuals. So I could fall into this as well. And it doesn't just have to be on a computer. We have so much access. You can do it through your smartphone or your tablet, or just apps in general, and to create and do business through online. A woman or a minority entrepreneur, again, this is someone who identifies as being female, or someone who may identify within a particular niche. So the example I gave at the beginning of this recording was I could be an entrepreneur within my field, because I end up in male dominated fields. I co-own a business in construction and agriculture, which are both heavily male dominated. I have my own business in finance, again, male dominated. My background is, my corporate background is in paint, which is, again, male dominated. So while I'm a minority within those worlds, you could also be a cultural minority, or a minority in some other way. So a cultural minority might be that you're a Hispanic person in the United States, or you're a Cuban person, or Haitian or Jamaican, or you're that we have a fair number of Filipinos and Russians. So immigrant entrepreneur status can also put you within a minority entrepreneur status as well. If you're working in a mostly Hispanic field, but you're not Hispanic yourself, or you're working in a mostly white field, but you're not white yourself, and then couple that with the next layer, which would be people that, say, from the LGBTQ community, working in a mostly straight field, you're going to see minority identification in that regard as well. Part-time entrepreneur, this is when someone, two things. It's either when someone has multiple hustles. So I work part-time at college, but I also have businesses. So I'm not devoting my time to any one of those things 100%. Therefore, I am a part-time entrepreneur. If you have been part of direct sales, you are a part-time entrepreneur. That's things like Avon, Mary Kay, Legal Shields, Stella and Dot. There's so many different ones that are part of the direct sales company, even with this being outdated in that Avon is no longer one, Advocare is no longer one, but I think it works is still one. There's a lot of them. Anytime you're doing direct sales, you would most likely be a part-time entrepreneur, because people usually add that. Anytime you do a side hustle, freelance work, things like that, are often also part-time entrepreneurs. I know people who do web development on the side, massage therapy on the side, let's see, car detailing, automotive work, things like that, that put them in that part-time status because they're also doing something else. Social entrepreneurs, many people who are concerned about the environment, world hunger, human trafficking, social responsibility, taking care of our poorer communities, things like that, are going to end up in this social entrepreneur category as well. Even those who consider themselves minimalists, zero waste, sustainable, or intentionalists, they're all going to end up in this social entrepreneur category, because where you fall into the social entrepreneurship category is not only are you concerned about profits, you are also concerned about some other entity outside of you. And you could be part of that entity. You could be someone who grew up in poverty who wants to go and help others who are currently in poverty. You could be someone who was a victim of domestic violence who is now using their platform of their business to shed light on domestic violence. there are so many different ways that you do that, but you add that social entrepreneur aspect when you are also concerned about something else. When you're thinking to yourself, okay, when I turn a profit, I also want to help this community. I also want to help the environment. I also want to create sustainable no waste items. I also want to, if there's this, I also want to, you're probably a social entrepreneur. You can do this as both a nonprofit. Most nonprofits are in it for something other than money. And so they a lot of times will fall into the social category. But you could also do it as a for-profit business. There is hosts and hosts of businesses that are known as social businesses within the social entrepreneurship category that have a B Corp certification. A B Corp certification is something that people have, or these companies have voluntarily paid money, gone through the system to have Group B Lab say, yes, you're doing things to change and benefit the environment. And here are guidelines, rules, accountability, and you're going to follow them. And I'm going to give you this corporate B Corp certification. So companies like Tom's Toothpaste, Patagonia, Tillamook Cheese. There's tons and tons of them. Those are just three off the top of my head that have that certification. Maybe they have biodegradable packaging. Maybe they have reduced their carbon footprint or have worked or are working to be carbon neutral by a certain date. Things like that. But they're going above and beyond what the requirements are by law to increase their positive impact on the world around them, which is really cool. And you can be a social entrepreneur without getting this B Corp certification. But the B Corp certification kind of gives us this wrap of credibility to our larger brand names that that are about. Okay, so that's all of them. Please write down all the things that you are, all the types of entrepreneur that you are, and or that you wish to be.